Phineas Taylor Barnum, better known as P.T. Barnum, started his own circus in 1841 when he bought Scudder's American Museum and changed its name to Barnum's American Museum. Dan Castello and William Cameron Coup, two circus owners, joined him in 1875. He changed the name of the business to P.T. Barnum's Great Travelling Museum, Menagerie, Caravan and Hippodrome. The new company combined with the Cooper and Bailey Circus, which was run by James Anthony Bailey and James E. Cooper, in 1881 to form the Barnum and Bailey Circus. After P.T. Barnum's death in 1891, his partner James Bailey took over the circus by buying Barnum's share from his wife. Bailey died in 1906, and the Ringling Brothers, who already ran the successful Ringling Brothers Circus, bought the Barnum and Bailey Circus and combined it with their own to make the Ringling Brothers and Barnum and Bailey Circus. It stayed in business until May 2017, when it closed because of rising costs, changing tastes, and concerns about animal rights. Frank Lentini. Oddity had 3 legs. On May 18, 1889, Frank Lentini was born in Sicily. Several sources say July 8, 1884 or 1885. The midwife who helped birth him hid him under the bed and ran out of the room screaming because he was so strange. He had 3 legs, 4 feet, 16 toes, and 2 sets of genitalia. People in Frankstown thought he was God's punishment and called him the Abominable. Some people also said that he got the 3rd leg when his pregnant mother, Giovanna, went to see a cart maker who had a table with 3 legs. It turned out that the 3rd leg was caused by an immature twin that Lentini had taken in. Lentini slept or sat with his 3rd leg on a box. He wore shoes and clothes that were made just for him by his mother. The 3rd leg got too short at one point, so Lentini tied it to one of the 2 main legs. Even though Lentini had 3 legs, the 2 main legs were not the same length. He often joked that he didn't have a pair of legs. Lentini met a puppeteer named Magnano in 1898. Magnano brought Lentini, his parents and himself to the United States, where Frank joined the Ringling Brothers show and then the Barnum show. He was called the Great Lentini, and he often kicked footballs with his 3rd leg. He was also known as the 3-legged football player because of this. He would say, "My mother did not give birth to 2 children," when asked why he had 3 legs. More than 1, but not 2. He passed away on September 21, 1966. Kate Baumbach, oddity, exceptional strength. It was in Vienna, Austria, in 1884 that Katharina Baumbach was born. She and her sisters were very strong, just like their parents, who were circus performers. After that, Kate and 3 of her sisters joined the circus. But Kate became the most famous. She often said that any guy who could beat her in a wrestling match would get 100 marks. There are reports that she was never beaten in any of the fights. In fact, she married someone during a fight. Max Heyman was the husband. He thought he would win easily because Kate was a woman. Heyman was sorry, but he couldn't remember how he lost the fight. He only remembered going into the ring, seeing the sky, and being taken away by the woman who won. Sandwina put any man on tour in New York who thought he could lift more weight than her to a game. The dare was taken up by Eugene Sandow, a bodybuilder and powerlifting champion. This made Kate very unhappy because she thought she had made a mistake. More and more heavy weights were added until Sandow could not lift a 136 kilogram, 300 lb weight over his chest. Kate had only used one arm to lift the same weight over her head. After that, she changed her stage name to Sandwina, which is a female version of Sandow. Kate became more well-known after this event, and she went on to tour the US with the Ringling Bros and Barnum and Bailey Circus. She did things like move horses and cannons. He weighed 75 kilo, 165 lb, and she carried him with one arm at times. Other times, she held 14 people on her shoulders in a carousel. At age 64, She quit her job and opened a restaurant in New York with her husband. People loved her because she would sometimes break horseshoes, bend steel bars, and carry her husband. On January 21st, 1952, she died of cancer. Schlitzie, oddity, microcephaly. Schlitzie was born on September 10, 1890, as Simon Metz. He had microcephaly, a birth defect that made his head stay small while the rest of his body filled out. By the time he was an adult, his face was slanted, his brain was small, and he thought like a 3- or 4-year-old. Schlitzie's disability often made people curious. Among the companies he worked for was the Ringling Brothers and Barnum and Bailey Circus, where he was shown as the last Aztec warrior still alive. And he was dressed and walked around like a lady because it was easier to change his diaper when he was dressed like a girl. Schlitzie also had a successful movie career and was in a number of films such as The Sideshow, Freaks, Island of Lost Souls, Tomorrow's Children, and Meet Boston Blackie. On September 24, 1971, he died of bronchial asthma. The record of his death said that his name was Schlitzie Surtees. George Surtees, a chimpanzee trainer who was his formal guardian from 1936 until his death in 1960, owned the last name. Joyce Heth, oddity, none. Joyce Heth was normal except that she was old, which was just what P.T. Barnum needed at that age. In 1835, he said she was 161 years old and had cared for George Washington when he was younger. These claims were not true. Heth wasn't 161 years old and had never met George Washington. Barnum paid her owner $1,000 to take her on a year-long tour of the United States. She was a slave. She sang for people and made up stories about George Washington when he was young. Over time, Barnum made up more lies about Heth. Some priests said he was taking advantage of a slave for his own gain, but he said Heth was no longer a slave and that he was just trying to make money to free her family. Barnum said that Heth wasn't 161 years old and wasn't even human at one point. Instead, she was a machine made of whale bones and leather. Heth was already not in good shape before the tour. She was weak, had lost her sight, and had had a stroke before. She passed away in February 1836, not long after she began traveling with Barnum. Barnum didn't let go of her right away. He had an autopsy done on her and sold tickets to people who wanted to go. When the autopsy doctor said Heth couldn't have been more than 80 years old, Barnum said he had given the doctor a fake body and that the real Heth was still alive. Barnum's first person he ever paraded was Heth, and the lies and scandals he made up about her helped him become famous. Annie Jones, oddity, heavy beard. This person was born in 1865. Her parents were worried because she had a lot of hair on her chin. They quickly saw that she could make them money, though, and took her to meet P.T. Barnum, who offered to pay them $150 a week for 3 years. It was too good to be true, though, and her parents quickly moved to New York after taking the offer. Among Victorian women with beards, Jones was the most well-known. She had a thick, full beard and hair that was more than 1.8 meters, 6 ft long. She was a great singer and had great manners. Jones kept touring as a lady with a beard for 36 years until she got sick out of the blue and died at age 37 in 1902. Isaac W. Sprag, oddity, extraordinarily lean. Isaac W. Sprag was born on May 21, 1841, and lived a normal childhood until he was 12 years old. Then he started losing weight for no clear reason. Because he dropped weight so quickly, his parents told him he couldn't do anything hard. Unfortunately, that didn't help, and Sprague kept losing weight even as he got bigger. It was too late for him to work because he had lost so much weight. The last time he was seen was at a carnival in 1865, when a promoter offered to pay him to go on trips. Sprague turned down the offer at first, but later accepted it. People called him the living skeleton, and he was so well known that he quickly joined Barnum's American Museum. For publicity reasons, he was married to a bigger woman more than once. He was 168 centimeter, 5'6", tall, and weighed 43 kilos when he was 44 years old. Because Sprague had a rare disease that made him need to eat all the time, he always carried a jar of milk with him and drank from it from time to time. In 1868, Sprague left Barnum's American Museum because a fire almost killed him. Around this time, he married Tamar Moore and had 3 kids. But he had to go back to the museum because he needed money. He passed away on January 5, 1887. His illness was never officially named, but it is thought to have been significant muscle atrophy. Wild Men of Borneo, oddity, dwarfism and superstrength. Hiram and Barney Davis were brothers who were known as the Wild Men of Borneo. They were very strong even though they were mentally challenged and only 102 centimeters (3'4" tall. In 1850, the brothers got their start in show business when a performer changed their names to Wino and Plutano and said they were caught in Borneo. The showman said that both brothers were very violent and that they had been caught after a major fight that needed guns and nets. Both of the brothers carried heavy things and watched shows. Aside from that, they acted out fights with people in the crowd. When they joined P.T. Barnum in 1880, they were famous right away. They worked in show business until Hiram's death in 1905. Barney himself came after in 1912. Fedor Jeftichu, oddity, excessive facial hair. Fedor Jeftichu was born in 1868 in St. Petersburg, Russia. He had hypertrichosis, a condition that made the hair on his face grow too much. Until he died, his dad took him on trips. After that, Fedor joined the Barnum Circus and was called Jojo the dog-faced boy there. Lots of times the circus talked about how Fedor looked like a dog and said that he barked and growled when he was scared. The act was kept up by Fedor, who barked and growled. Fedor's story was also very interesting. He said that he was caught when a shooter found him and his father in a cave. Fedor was said to be quieter than his father, who was said to be very violent. Fedor was known for being smart and calm, so what it said about him being calm was true. He could speak English, German and Russian, and some say he could speak 2 more. A case of asthma killed him in 1904. Some sources say 1903. Prince Randan, oddity, totally limbless. The prince was born in 1871 in British Guiana. He had no limbs at all. People called him the Snake Man, the Living Torso, the Human Worm, and the Human Caterpillar, among other names. He got his last name from the stripes on his clothes and the way he moved around on the floor. Prince Randan did amazing things at P.T. Barnum's circus, like writing, drawing, shaving, and lighting cigarettes. He also did a lot of shows and museums. Prince Randan didn't just light up cigarettes with his arms crossed, he also rolled the cigarettes and took the matchsticks out of the matchboxes to light them. Charles Stratton, oddity, dwarfism. General Tom Thumb was one of P.T. Barnum's most famous and well-liked freaks. A carpenter and a woman gave birth to him on January 4, 1838, in Bridgeport, Connecticut. His name was Charles Stratton. Little Stratton didn't have the same height and size as either of his parents. His growth stopped when he was only 6 months old, and it wouldn't start up again for a long time. There was a famous 4-year-old boy named Barnum in 1842 who was only 15 pounds and 25 inches tall. He weighed as much as a baby. The showman wanted to add some new things to his New York City Hall of Living Curiosities, which was already very popular. Barnum told Charlie's parents he would pay them $3 a week, and then he left for New York. Barnum said that Stratton was an English boy named Tom Thumb, who was 11 years old. He dressed up as Napoleon or a Scottish Highlander a lot of the time. Within a month, Tom Thumb became a huge hit, and Barnum raised his pay to $50 a week, which was a lot of money in the 1840s. Barnum took Stratton to England when he was 6 years old and charmed the people there. Queen Victoria came to see him twice. They went on a tour of the US in 1856, when Stratton was 3 feet tall all the way up. People kept coming to the museum to see Tom Thumb, and in 1863, Barnum planned the wedding of the century for a famous person. Lavinia Warren was another man who Barnum was interested in, and General Tom Thumb married her. Lots of people thought Barnum's wedding was just a press stunt, but the couple said they were really in love. After getting married, they went on their honeymoon to the White House and sang for Abraham Lincoln. He died of a stroke in 1883 when he was 45 years old.